So everybody should be just seeing the PolicyMap landing page right now. I'll just start with just a quick background on PolicyMap. I'm sure that there's a bit of a mix in terms of folks who are familiar with PolicyMap. Maybe NeighborWorks kind of used to have a subscription to PolicyMap a couple of years ago, so maybe some folks who've kind of used it before, and again have some familiarity with this. And there's probably some who are haven't heard as much about PolicyMap and kind of what the tool is. And so I'll start with that overview, and then and a little bit of that background, and then we can get into the actual demonstration. So, and just to quickly kind of introduce myself, so my name is Brian Blacker. I'm the data services lead at PolicyMap. So I work with a lot of PolicyMap subscribers and customers from premium subscribers, which is what kind of the subscription that NeighborWorks has, as well as kind of like other enterprise accounts and things along those lines. So PolicyMap is a nationwide online mapping and data platform. So we basically combine almost 50,000 indicators from this combination of some public data sources. So data from the census and housing data from HUD and health data from CDC, as well as some proprietary data on things like home sale activity, some vacancy data, some school performance data, and we combine it into an easy to use mapping and reporting tool. So you'll see when we get into the demonstration, the data that's available through the PolicyMap data library really kind of runs the gamut from demographics, income, housing, health, jobs, education, other areas as well. Some of the use cases of PolicyMap are research, market studies, business planning, site selection, grant applications, impact analysis, overall data visualization. And some of our subscribers that we work with include federal, state, and local government agencies, some universities that use it for courses and some of the teaching that they do with students, as well as for research purposes. Lots of nonprofit organizations, community development, financial institutions, and then also a lot of customers in kind of the healthcare, public health space too. So we actually started as part of the reinvestment fund, a CDFI based in Philadelphia, and originally kind of as an internal tool for them to be able to understand neighborhoods and communities where they were making investments and prioritizing their resources, and then to be able to start talking about their impact. So that's the quick background on who we are. In terms of the demonstration, so I'll start with an overview of some of the basic functionality, talk about the data that's available, kind of how that's all organized, and then I will kind of in the second sort of half of the hour turn to showing some more advanced features and functionality. I'll also, since there are maybe some who have used PolicyMap previously and maybe kind of the older kind of legacy version of the platform, I'll also try to highlight some of the newer functionality that's kind of come out with since we've kind of flipped the switch to sort of the new version of the platform. So I'll leave also just like the last 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, try to get as close to 10 minutes as I can at the end for just like some questions that that people might have. So starting with the basics, so PolicyMap is a web-based tool, so you can access it from any computer with internet access. PolicyMap.com is the URL, and that'll bring you to this landing page that you see here. So you click on the login button in the top right, and when you log in, your username is going to be your email address, and then usually you get sort of a temporary password to use for the first time you log in, and then you can change that. There's also that forgot password link, which will just send you an email. So when you log into PolicyMap, the default view will kind of be this full view of the US. Let me just expand my screen there. So I always like to point out we have lots of support resources. So after this overview training, if you're looking for guides and tutorials and some like quick videos and things along those lines, this support page, which you can get to from the top right corner, has lots of that kind of content. So there's different guides that you can kind of click through, making a map, searching for location, and go through the different sort of features and things like that. There's also, this is searchable. So, if you're interested in, working with custom regions or something like that, you can search for things, see different posts and click on them. We also on our support page have video gallery, which is like a quick start video, and then some kind of highlights of new features from the new platform. And then we also maintain this what's new section of the site, which is where we'll kind of have like a running feed of updated data. So as data sources get updated in PolicyMap, we post those here, as well as kind of new features and functionality that get added to the site. So there's definitely lots of good stuff in here. So I always like to point that out. So in terms of just general navigation things, so when you have the map open, you can drag and use the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. To get closer, you'll see that some of the base map details start to fill in. In terms of core functionality, one of the kind of core pieces of functionality is going to be this location search bar up above the map window. So in here, you can search for a specific address, a city, a county, a zip code, and it will navigate you to that location on the map. So if I put in Kings County, New York, and select that from the search results, it will zoom me into that area, show me the boundary for that county. I'll come back to these buttons once I actually have some data displayed on the map. The set location bar also does have some drop down. If you select the location drop down, you can also like search for a specific census tract. If you have like that full FIPS code, you can also use some of the built-in boundaries on state legislative districts and also like U.S. congressional districts, and just kind of work through these drop downs to find a particular boundary location, and then use that for creating your map or downloading data or whatever you might be doing. So you can zoom in really, really, close. This is sort of something with the new platform. This kind of has a whole set of new base maps kind of built on the Mapbox technology, and so kind of accommodates a lot more kind of like detail to the base map. And also this ability to really kind of zoom into like a very close kind of block level, especially when you may be looking at point data or kind of like data like a small boundary. This kind of thing is really helpful, and you'll see that the building footprints and details start to populate in there as well when you're zoomed in really closely. In like urban centers, you can also use this 3D button in the bottom right-hand corner to adjust your angle and kind of create like a different type of visualization, see, the building heights and things like that. And just to kind of create a different kind of perspective. And if you wanted to reset that to the overhead view, just click on that reset button. A couple of other just notes on the base map itself. So we have different base map settings and options. So from the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see this gear icon, where there's sort of these 4 base map selections or options that you can use. So there's the standard one, which we're looking at. There's a terrain base map, satellite imagery, as well as just kind of more like a basic grayscale base map. And then within each of those, there's also these different features that you can turn on and off. So if you wanted to turn off the roads, you can uncheck that box, or maybe just turn off the labels for the roads. So there's these different options that you can kind of play around with down here in the base map settings. There's also some built-in, rail lines, rail stations, bus stops, and bus line base map layers as well. So you can also turn those on too, just to kind of, these are just to give you kind of that visual of, rail lines and rail stops, and especially again, obviously going to have better coverage in big cities. So all of the data in PolicyMap is organized into these data menus across the top of the map window. So from demographics over to analytics is all the data that's part of the PolicyMap data library that we are updating and maintaining and adding new data to on a ongoing basis. So as you, everything is, grouped by theme to help make it, easy to find what you might be looking for. As you expand these kind of open up into more and more sort of specific indicators. And so you can kind of cascade through these menus to find what you're looking for. So if you look under incomes and spending and you're looking for a poverty indicator, you can look at people in poverty by race, ethnicity. And then once you've selected, you kind of see this gets to a more and more specific indicator. And once you select, an option for a layer to load on the map, then that will, load that. In this case, this is a data layer, so it's going to, shade areas based off of that variable once you select it from that map window. So, I think it always, I always say that, one of the first kind of times that you're in here, it's I'd recommend, just spending time just sort of navigating through these menus just to kind of get a sense of, what, data is in here. We do have, if you click on this data directory link, you can also just kind of see like a long list of all the data that we have. And that also would, includes some detail on kind of like what years of, are available for each indicator and what boundaries and things like that. So there's kind of a whole lot more detail in that data directory as well. But you'll see that there's lots in here. It just kind of does take some time just to kind of digest everything that, that we have. So, just a quick overview, the demographics is going to have lots of the census data from the census on, race and ethnicity, population with disabilities, some language indicators, household and family types. Incomes and spending has lots of the income, median household income, family income, low and moderate income, poverty indicators. The housing menu has a couple of the data sets that we are proprietary that we license, so home sale data from Moody's, some vacancy, residential and business vacancy data from a source called Velasas Lists. And then the housing menu is also kind of where you'll start to see some point level data as well. So, lots of the data in PolicyMap is data layers, shading areas based off of, a particular variable, creating those kind of thematic maps. But we also do have some point data sets in here as well for things like locations of subsidized housing, locations of schools, hospitals, grocery stores, some, small business lending data. So the lending menu is going to have some data on mortgage originations, some small business lending. We do have some of the kind of point data sets we recently added that are really interesting, like PPP data, it's actual loan level data for PPP loans from SBA, and also SBA 504 and 7A loans. So those are some big point level data sets with some interesting filtering capabilities. The quality of life menu has things like computer and internet access and, locations of brownfields and Superfund sites, library locations, museums, parks, park access areas. The economy menu has unemployment data and lots of data on jobs and jobs by industry. The education menu has some school locations, school performance data from grade schools, some other school district level data like student teacher ratios and graduation rates, different student populations. The health menu is going to have hospital locations, nursing facilities, drug and alcohol treatment facilities, some food access related data. We also have our COVID data in here, which is county level, but cases and deaths and vaccinations. And then the federal guidelines menu is going to have some of those like federal place-based designations. So things like opportunity zones, new markets tax credit eligibility, some CDFI program data, CDBG. So that's kind of the quick overview of the data menus and sort of what's contained within each of them. There's also a data search bar here. So if you're looking for a particular indicator or variable or something along those lines, you can also do searches within the data search bar. And if we wanted to look for like a bachelor's degree indicator, you can do a keyword search, navigate through here, see kind of the what indicators show up, and then select just directly from this search results and load that on the map as well. So I'll go through quickly, how to interact with data layers and data points and some of the different, things you can do with each of those kind of two different types of data in PolicyMap. So I'm going to load just families and poverty as a data layer example here. And so anytime you have a data layer on the map, you'll see over in the legend, just a label kind of title for, what indicator you're looking at. You can click on this eye bubble to see if there's kind of a more detailed description. Some of them have, more detail, especially if it's like a calculated type of indicator. You also see the source. So this one's showing that it comes from the census. You can click on this link right here to pull up our data dictionary entry for that particular source. And then in each source entry, it'll tell you, what years are available from that source, what geographies the data is displayed for, the last time it was updated in PolicyMap, and then different descriptions and about how we work with that data or display that data in PolicyMap. So when you're moving your mouse around, when you have a data layer on the map, you'll see like I'm not clicking on anything, just kind of moving my mouse around, and my hover will tell me, based off of, in this case, it's shading this data at the census tract level, and it's going to tell me, what the estimated percent of families living in poverty is, just kind of right there in that little info kind of pop-up bubble based off of where my mouse is hovering. You'll also see over in the legend that it'll kind of highlight in gray sort of which of those default ranges, based off of where I'm hovered. So if I'm in some of these darker purple areas, it'll show me that this is in that highest range. If I'm in some of the lighter purple areas with lower poverty rates, then it'll show me that it's in those lower ranges. And then so there is that kind of dynamic connection here too. So if you wanted to just see those areas that are in the top two ranges, you can actually click on those over here in the legend, and then it will hide everything else, and then just show you those census tracts with those higher poverty rates. And so this is one of those newer pieces of functionality with the new platform. And then if you wanted to remove those and kind of display all the data again, just click on those X's over in the legend. So then if you actually click on an area, so if I wanted to kind of see more information about one of these darker purple census tracts, once you click on that, now this kind of pop-up will show you, the current, estimated value for the latest time frame, and then this trend chart is interactive, so you can kind of very quickly just see sort of how this indicator has changed over time for the previous time frames that are available. And then you can click on this trends button here to open up a sidebar next to your map that will show you, kind of give you the ability to do some comparisons, see sort of how this census tract compares to some of the hierarchy areas or kind of benchmark areas in which it sits, as well as to look at it against neighboring census tracts or neighboring boundaries. So if you wanted to, the default is going to show you, for how this census tract compares to, the county in which it sits, the city, the metro area, and you can kind of just again do those quick comparisons to how this compares to larger areas. And then these are all interactive, so you can kind of, for all these different boundaries, kind of move over them and see those values. And then if you wanted to look at rather than hierarchy or kind of containing boundaries, you can also switch this to look at neighboring boundaries. So kind of just to see like, how does this census tract compare to its neighboring census tracts? And then with each of those options, you can expand these out into a more kind of full trend chart by clicking on this button to see the chart with listed locations. And this will open up this trend chart modal, which will show you the selected geography. So that selected census tract that I clicked on, but then you can add in, for example, like, the city of New York, the metro area. So you can add in those benchmark boundaries here. You can turn on and off different labeling options, turn on, leader lines and things like that. So, but create your own trend chart, and then you can export this just as like an image and, incorporate that into a report or something like that quickly. A couple more things to mention in terms of some of the legend options over here. So if you wanted to look at, so let me just collapse that sidebar. So if you wanted to, go to a previous time frame, so just kind of on the map itself, show this same indicator, but for a prior time frame, you can select this year drop down and change this to show that. And again, so that will just kind of keep the same indicator, same variable, it's just showing a different time frame from the data. You can also change your variable. So from the default, which in this case is the %, you could also look at like an estimated count by clicking on the number variable, or in lots of cases we have like % change type of indicators or variables as well to select from. You can change your color. So if you want to kind of change your, the color ramp on your data layer, you can also do that using the color dropdown. And then you can also change your ranges. So the, the default is going to be these 5 ranges broken up, kind of into quintile buckets. But if you wanted to change this to, fewer ranges, or, wanted to just change sort of the cut points so that like, perhaps like the highest kind of darkest areas are only those areas where it's greater than 25% or something like that. You can, slide these around or just kind of change the numbers themselves. And then the map will dynamically change based off of the, the different criteria that you put in there. And then this shaded by dropdown will tell you, the default is going to be based off of how, far out you're zoomed or how close in you're zoomed on the map. It'll kind of change dynamically. And so if I start to zoom out, eventually this will switch to like a zip code area, and then eventually to a county and a state. But you can also choose to select a specific kind of boundary at which you want to display the data, and then kind of lock that boundary in. So if you wanted to keep it at the census tract level and not have that change based off of your zoom on the map, you can use this little lock icon next to the shaded by dropdown, and it will kind of keep it shaded at that census tract level regardless of your your zoom. So let me just go ahead and load just a point data set on the map just to show a couple of things about interacting with point data. So I'll just put on HUD multifamily properties. So these are going to be displayed as actual point locations. So there'll be these little orange diamonds on the map. And so when you're hovering over one of them, some cases you may see like, oh, there's 2 points here, or you'll see, just like a quick label for it. If you click on one of them, then you'll see the attributes for that particular point that you selected. These are, things that you can expand and close down. And obviously these attributes will vary depending on what particular point data you're looking at. You can also change your icon. So, use a different icon shape, color, size. And you can also use filtering on pretty much most of the point data in PolicyMap will have some filters set up. So if you click on this filters menu item, then you'll see the different filters that are available in each point data set that you have displayed on the map. So if I wanted to look at like an inspection score filter group and say, just those would have like lower inspection scores, less than 60, then it will just show those points on the map. If you wanted to, remove that filter, just click it, the X right there in the point legend. You can also, in a lot of cases, keep all the points on the map, but just do a color coding filter just to show, all the points, but have them color coded based off of that filter grouping. There's also, when you are zoomed in closely, there's also the ability to turn on labeling on point data. So if you wanted to have like a label display for your point data set when you're zoomed in closely so that there's not too much kind of noise on the map, you can also do that. Clicking on this little label icon up here in the point legend, you can also temporarily hide your point data by clicking on that eyeball icon. And so if you wanted to remove the point data set or your data layer, you can just click on these X's over here in the legends. You can also use this reset map button in the bottom right hand corner to just kind of reset, kind of does like a refresh and pulls you back out to the default view. We also have map boundaries, which kind of operate as like overlays on top of your data layers and data points. So over here on the left, to the left of demographics is the boundaries menu. And so if you wanted to just, maybe you just want to put on your census tract boundaries, so you can kind of better delineate sort of where those, each census tract begins and ends, you can use that. You could also kind of overlay something, like zip code areas on top of your data or, political district or something along those lines. You can turn off the labels from the boundaries menu, clicking on that, label icon there. You can also change your, line style, color, weight, and kind of change some of the visualization components of the boundary overlay as well by using these drop downs. So I'm going to pull back up in the set location bar, just kind of put on Kings County again, just to revisit these couple of buttons that showed up here when I use the set location bar to, to set a location to navigate to a particular location. So when you have data displayed on the map and you've selected, a county, a zip code, or some other built-in boundary here, you can use some of these different buttons, to either clip your map. So if you wanted to, just kind of hide all of the, layers and points outside of your selected location, you can use that scissor icon that was in there. You can also use, there's the same icons down here in the bottom bottom right corner. And then you can also kind of view the data that falls within that set location by clicking on this table button. So that will open up that sidebar again over here on the right hand side. And then from this drop down, you can say, like, basically I want to see, the layer data, so the families in poverty, and it will show you kind of a list of the census tracts that fall within Kings County or whatever your selected location is, and what the different the value is for each of those census tracts that falls within there. You can similarly change this to look at just like the HUD multifamily properties that fall within your selected location. And then if you kind of over in the sidebar move down the line to the download, that's where you would be able to essentially kind of download that same thing. So download your census tract indicator for your selected location, or download your points that fall within that selected location. And then the third option is points with the layer data. So that would be if you wanted to download those HUD multifamily properties that fall within Kings County, but then kind of have each of those properties kind of stamped with the poverty rate based off of the census tract in which it's situated. So that would be the third option there. So you basically just select one of those three, click on the download data, and then these just generate through your browser. They're CSVs, so you can open them up in Excel. Any kind of like indicator or layer data that you download will have zips code information, and to make so that you can kind of incorporate use that and join it with like a shapefile or something like that outside of PolicyMap. So in addition to downloading like the actual data, you can also, export an actual map image by clicking on this print icon on the right-hand side. So this will open up a little print preview where you can, drag this around. You can zoom in and out, just kind of situate your map to, where you want to be, and then you can use all these different options over here on the right hand side to turn on and off different legends, change your format, whether it's PDF or an image, your layout. You can edit the title up here by clicking on this pencil icon, change anything, make any changes, and click the check mark. Add the data layer description in there if you want. So kind of choose lots of different options there. And then once you're ready to export this, just click on the export button. And this is another thing that will just generate through your browser, show up in your local downloads, and then you can use it in your work. And then there's also the ability to just save a map view. So if you've created a map and you think it might be something you might want to kind of come back to, you can click on this save icon. And so it'll save kind of your zoom level, your data layer, your data point that you have displayed, selected locations, kind of like all of it's basically kind of taking a snapshot of that current map view, taking a capture of that, and then saving it into your saved workspace. And so you can change the title that you save this with, click on save, and it'll add it into your saved work, which you can access just by clicking that folder icon right below it. And in here, you'll see there's the different things that you can save when you're working in PolicyMap. So there's the maps, multi-layer map that you might create, any custom regions that you might make. And so everything will kind of be organized into these different buckets. You can also create projects and drag in like a couple of maps and a custom region and maybe some data that you downloaded. So there's also kind of that little bit of that folder organization there as well. The share icon right below the saved work does have the ability to create like an embeddable map. So especially for any kind of data that's in here that's public data and isn't like a proprietary data set, you can create embeddable maps with it. So just click on that share link, and from here you can basically just get this HTML. It's just a basic iframe code, and then that's something that you could basically kind of put that map view into like a blog posting or a web page or something like that. And we have lots of examples of those, like on our blog. You'll see lots of those kind of embed maps, which will just kind of give the user the ability to kind of pan around and kind of see the data on the map and kind of use this hovering ability. So the next thing I would show is custom regions. And so just clear my map a little bit. So the custom regions are available from this custom regions menu or button up here in the top right-hand corner. So a custom region basically allows you to kind of create your own area, either by drawing on the map or like assembling a couple of underlying geographies or boundaries, or setting like a circular radius around a selected point. And then basically kind of you're able to use that custom region to see data that falls within that area, or to clip your map using that region. And so you can kind of do lots of the same things that you would do with the built-in boundaries that you can search for using this set location bar once you've created one of these custom regions. So I'll use the assembled region for example. And so when you click on the assembled region, you just have to select kind of like which boundary you want to kind of assemble together. So something like this, like maybe if I wanted to look at some counties in North Jersey or something like that, I'll select to change this from census tracts to counties. And then I can start basically just kind of clicking on them, and they'll start to fill in with that highlighting. And so let's say I just kind of selected these 5 counties up in North Jersey. And once you've selected any, you can remove them by clicking on the X's. Once you've selected them, though, you can click on continue. It will show that as a kind of a single region on the map. And then you can give this a name. So you can symbol North Jersey. You can put in a description if you'd like. You can also change some of the visual, display of this if you wanted to kind of show this with a different color or change the transparency on it. So I'll go ahead and save it. And now that I've saved this custom region, if I go up into my custom regions, again, using that button in the top right-hand corner, this second tab is where you can view regions that you've already created. So this first tab is for actually creating them. The second tab is where you can view the ones that you've already created. So here's that assembled North Jersey one that I just created. Here's other ones that I've created previously. So you can, after you've saved this region, if you needed to come back and edit it, you can click on this, expand that menu and click on the edit region and edit your shape. And, in here, maybe I want to, remove, Bergen County from, my custom region. You can remove it and then just kind of go through and, just save that again. And then you can also share these with other users by clicking on this share icon and just putting in an email address, and they'll just get a notification, and then they would also see it up in their custom regions, the list of regions that they have available to them. So once you've created a custom region like this, then, similar to those built-in boundaries, if you had, an indicator on the map of, number of renters, and by this census tract area. Just lock that. And so, again, you can, use these buttons here from the custom region to, clip your map, or to, view the data that falls within that custom region. So, showing the rental occupancy rates for each census tract within that, so, custom region that I just created. And then this is, again, something you can download, use to kind of download the data layer or the data points that you have displayed on the map, using that as kind of your bounding geography. And then we have, the other thing just to mention is that we do have a couple of just sort of basic system reports in here. So for, either areas that you navigate to through the set location bar, or, using custom regions, you can use these, generate one of these system reports. So the community profile is probably the most, the one with the greatest utility. It just kind of has lots of demographic information, different income thresholds. And if I go ahead and click on generate report, it will just kind of compile the data using that custom region area. So, especially like sometimes if you're going, doing like a project in like an area and just kind of need like some summary level, community context, and maybe do like a set a radius around, an address or something like that, and just want to kind of get a general sense of demographics and, income distribution and things like that for this area. This is, a helpful resource, is just sort of a starting point to get lots of information for a custom region that you created, or, again, like just a county or a city or another built-in boundary. So you can save these, you can print them just as PDFs. So that is the reports. And we do have a couple other ones. The community health report is also a nice report. It's currently just available to be generated for single counties or for single census tracts. So, but it's a kind of one of the newer reports, and so it has a lot of kind of nice visualizations within it. So I will go through a quick multi-layer map example. Because
actually, Brian, quick question. It's in the chat. If we as NeighborWorks, we collect various geographies about our organizations, either where they serve, or they draw boundaries and say this is an area that I focus my comprehensive community development in. If we wanted to upload those geographies within this system, is that something we can do at a batch level? Like, how would that work based on the plan that we have?
So there is a self-service data loader with PolicyMap, but it's just for uploading address level data to be, as points. So anything that's kind of more like service areas or kind of boundaries like that is something that we'd have to kind of work with you as kind of like a custom data load into the platform and then make it available to the users on the NeighborWorks subscription.
Gotcha. And then that would we'd tell you how many geographies and kind of what they are, and you'd give us an estimate of how many hours that would take.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
So the multi-layer mapping tool, so we've been kind of, for the whole demo at this point, just been really in the single layer view. The multi-layer view you can get to by toggling up in the top right of the map window from single layer to multi-layer. And so the multi-layer map view is basically kind of gives you the ability to put a couple of data layers on the map and change some criteria and basically kind of see either where there's intersection across a couple of different variables or where there's overlap, and to be able to start kind of like talking about relationships. So just to go through a quick example here, so if I wanted to look at something like low income areas that have high rental cost burden, so those will kind of be my two indicators or two layers that I'm going to be layering on top of each other. I'll start with the income, the low income indicator. So I'll use low mod indicators. So this will be median family income as a percent of area median income. And so we'll go, for where this is less than 50%. So over in the legend there, I just changed the top end range from the default for all data to just where it's less than 50%. So these are going to be kind of like low income census tracts. So the areas that are still highlighted are going to be those that kind of meet the criteria that I set in that first layer. And then I can go ahead and add another layer by just kind of selecting something else from the data menus here. So if I go in and do housing and cost burdens and look at renter cost burdens. So this one will be, percent of all renters who are cost burdened. So that second layer is getting added on there. And so right now the map looks the same because I have to actually change something in the criteria for the second layer for it to kind of drill down to areas that meet additional criteria that I've set. So if I wanted to, slide this up to, 65% or something like that. So it'll change, the areas that it's still shading on the map when I change the upper or lower boundary of that second data layer. So now kind of the areas that are still highlighted are those that meet both criteria. So these are going to be, low income census tracts with, relatively high rental cost burdens. And so if you click on one of those purple areas, you'll see the underlying values. So you can see, why this one is still filled in purple. If you click on one of the areas it's not filled in, you'll see why it's not still filled in, because it didn't, meet the renter cost burden criteria that we selected. And so that's kind of generally the way that this tool can work. So it can work as either this, kind of drill down filtering sort of tool to be able to see areas that, meet these different criteria that you set. You can also toggle from the query type from up in the multi-layer map legend to look at just overlap by clicking on the or query. And with that, it's just going to kind of show a little bit of a different visualization where it will continue to show, the census tracts that, are low income tracts. And then it will also show those high rental cost burden tracts. But it will kind of keep, all areas for those two layers on the map so that you can see, where there's the blue fill and the, the diagonal hatching. That's where, both of the criteria are met, but then there's also these areas where, they're low mod, but they're not, higher rental cost burden, and then vice versa. There's higher rental cost burden areas that are not low mod. So kind of just to, again, sort of start to talk a little bit about sort of relationships across these different indicators. So you can add up to 5 layers, and you can temporarily kind of turn on and off some. So if you wanted to turn off one of your layers over in the legend, you can click on that little eyeball just to kind of hide it temporarily, and then turn it back on to keep it load it back up on the map. And then this is something you can save. So you can, again, save this map view, or export this as a PDF or a PNG. I see that Graciela had a hand raised. Was there a question?
Yeah. So for the multi-layer, is there a way to, if you use more than 2, to combine the and the or statements, or is it just either?
It is just either. So there's not the ability to kind of have certain criteria, use the and query, certain criteria use the or query. It's a bit more of a across all 5 layers.
Okay, thank you. And then is there a way, I mean, I think it's very cool that the shading is different to represent both. Is there a way to like change that formatting a little bit, or like how
The
much
shading?
Yeah, like some of it is the lines and then the color, and like if there's a way to change those representations.
There's a few options right now. So if you click on over here in this is kind of the symbology for each layer. So there's kind of like, you can use different cross-hatching options. There's also like a more of like a vertical, horizontal, and then there's kind of the just kind of like the dot fill kind of. So there's limited options, but there's a couple of different symbology options you can use.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I'll just really quickly, show the self-service data loader that I had mentioned, which you can upload as, basically addresses as points on the map. I'll try and go through this pretty quickly again. So on the map, so this is one thing where if I hover over this data loader, it says like, you need to go to the legacy tool. So this is actually kind of like the last sort of piece of functionality that is still just in the legacy version of PolicyMap and has not been fully ported over to the new version of PolicyMap. So it just directs you to come over here and basically load your data in on the legacy tool. And then you can access it on the new version of the tool, but just in terms of the upload, you just have to go through on the legacy side. So I just toggled over there using that link at the top of the browser. So the type of data, again, that you can upload is going to be address level data that you can display as points. So in terms of what you would want to have included, your street address, city, state, and zip code, as long as you kind of have those fields included, then this is a pretty straightforward process. You do need to save the file that you import as a CSV. You can have up to 50 other columns in your data set. In terms of batch limitations, you can have up to 5,000 addresses in a single batch. You can upload as many batches as you want. It's just kind of more of a per batch limit in terms of the number of records. So once you've kind of had, this is just like a very simple list of points within New York. So just for the purposes of this quick upload. So this is kind of what my file looks like. And over here in the data loader, you would use the second option, upload a spreadsheet, give this a name. And then here you can set whether you want it to be just accessible to yourself or other individuals. This publicly shareable is really you just want it to be available for an embeddable map. But I'll just use myself, and then you can change your icon, shape and size and color. So here's where you would go and navigate to the file that you want to upload. There are, some links here for tips for setting up your spreadsheet, and then just like a sample spreadsheet. So click through here. It'll use kind of those column names to try and identify, what your address fields are. And then it'll identify just other fields in your data. click on next, and it will start the geocoding. So it'll actually try and, assign latitude, longitude coordinates and drop a point based off of the address information that's in there. And then this next page is going to be a summary of your geocoding, and it'll tell you how many were, successfully geocoded up here in the top left. You can sort these using these column headers. So if you wanted to kind of see all of your, this green dot means that it matched, a location, it has a latitude, longitude coordinate. If I filter or kind of sort on that, then I can find the ones that it didn't, match. And those will be represented with these red dots. And, within here, you can, make actual edits to, the address information, and then it will try and re-geocode it on the fly. So I, don't have we'll just try and type in a different address number there. And so now that I've put in that different address information, it's geocoded that one. And now it's showing a green dot. So you can kind of make those edits on the fly. And then from here, you can either, download these points just with the, the latitude and longitude coordinate information. If you're really just kind of wanting to use this as like a geocoder, you can also, save and close and, be able to load this on the map. So this will just kind of show you a quick preview of the points on the map, but let me go back to PolicyMap and
Brian, while that's loading, there's a question in the chat about, do you all have a rural definition that you work with or have in the data in terms of census tracts or places that are rural versus?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's definitely a lot of, I know we have a couple of layers in PolicyMap, like from different, pretty much from different federal agencies. Like I think the CDFI fund has a layer as far as rural designated tracts, and I know that the USDA one does. I think the one that we tend to kind of point folks towards is under, is kind of in the food access data, like as part of the, USDA food access data set that the USDA releases. They have like an urban rural designation. So that's under, it's in a couple of places, but quality of life, USDA food access, urban rural designation. It's just kind of like a categorical type of indicator that, shows, obviously I have to get outside of New York here, but that shows, rural tracts as this yellow color. And I think if you click on this or go to the actual data directory, you can see some, information about sort of that designation from the USDA. And then there are if you even just search in here, like I said, I think there's a couple of other, it's not giving me good results. To look into that one. But yeah, I think there's one under the federal guidelines, and I think it's the CDFI fund that I think also has they have metro, non-metro, and I do believe there's another like rural designation in here too. So, but that USDA one is the one that I think tend to use most often. Just to show you quickly, so that data that I just loaded here for those sample New York points. When you load a data set through the data loader, you can come back, into the, the new version of PolicyMap, and under the My Data tab is where you'll find it. You can just load it on the map from there, and then, you can kind of use it. There isn't the ability to set up like your own filters, but once you've loaded this into the tool, you can, use a custom region, download points that, from your data set that fall within your custom region, or, things along those lines too. And then if you needed to edit your data, you just have to go back to that data loader, and the data loader tool, and then the second tab is where you can access data sets you've already loaded. And then this is where you can change, like, after you've uploaded it, you can, change the permissions as far as accessibility. You can edit the actual points and add more records and things like that too. Let me just open up the chat just to see if there's any other ones I didn't see. Okay. Any other questions that anybody has? I know that we're a couple minutes over.
Yeah, I just have one more question. It's Michael. If folks have kind of a tech support need, is the best bet to reach out to you by email, or is there another way PolicyMap prefers people to get in touch with those sorts of issues?
So for general, I'd say kind of like support questions, we do have a like a couple of folks that just kind of do customer support and kind of monitor our support inbox. So from the support page, it's either it's basically support@policymap.com is a kind of an email address. You can also just from the support page click on this contact button and like type in here, and it goes to the same location. So but yeah, so for just sort of general technical support, or kind of like you're kind of navigating through this and see something that looks off or something like that, it's either support@policymap.com and or using this contact us button there.
Awesome. Thank you.